From Fox 8 Sports, this is the Overtime Podcast.
From the Gulf Coast studios in New Orleans, this is the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Fazende, riding shotgun as he does each and every podcast. It's Andre Johnson.
Junior.
Do not forget the junior. It's very important. Remember the JR at the end of the name. Before we get into today's content, be sure to like, to share, to rate, to review. If you are watching us on YouTube, please do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Get the bell notification. But when we drop that, fire content. Also, hello to the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. Glad you have found us here. Please stay here. Hope you're with us yesterday, before the game, after the game. But I'm glad you're here now. So tell your friends. We have a whole lot of things happening on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. And we're going to start today, Andre, on this Monday. First time in a long time. It is Victory Monday, not moral victory Monday. It is a real victory. The Saints improve to 1-4. Thank goodness for the New York Giants, a team they have historically always matched up pretty well against. I think it was two comparable teams. And Saints, just said, some games just say, hey, let me just step back and let this other team keep shooting themselves in the foot. I think that's exactly what happened last night with the Saints. But hey, wins, you don't apologize for them. You take them any way that you get them. So the Saints are victorious over the New York Giants. Of course, we're going to get into that today, but how you feeling on this Monday?
I'm feeling good because, like you said, it is a Victory Monday. We've been coming in here doing Victory Mondays saying, okay, well, they lost, but they didn't lose as much as we thought they would, or they lost, but they did this, they did that. Not today.
Real deal today.
Saints won a football game. It is Victory Monday. We're happy. We're stoked about it. It's exciting. But the Saints weren't the only ones who got a win. Their first win on Sunday. Kellen Moore got his first win as a head coach on Sunday. That's a big deal. But a guy who we've talked about a lot on this podcast, Spencer Rattler, got his first win as a starter Sunday against the New York Giants. Sean, as we look forward, what does that mean for Rattler?
Well, first off, we called it. I said specifically on this podcast Friday, the Saints are going to win. You said if Taysom plays,
I did.
We're going to get the win. Well, we were both right in that aspect. As for Spencer Rattler, the Rat Pack.
All to him.
Rattler has a way of surviving that's really starting to grow on me. I mean, it's actually it's actually pretty admirable when you think about it. He has an uncanny ability of doing just enough when he has to do it, doesn't he? He really does. Every time he starts to think it might be it for old Spencer, it might be done, this might be his last chance, he manages to save himself with a performance. It really felt like this was the week, didn't it? I mean, we talked about it all week. I tell you, it really had cranked up in the press conference Wednesday. The chatter had really built up, not just here, but nationally. It really felt like this was the week. The bar had officially been raised to the point of, okay, look, we all kind of sensed it, but even if Rattler played, quote unquote, well enough to not lose or not the main reason they lost, he had to finally figure out a way to win a game. Because if they had lost that game, they would have slipped to 0-5. He would have slipped to 0-11. You would have had all your ammunition that you needed to make the switch to the rookie Tyler Shuck. But it didn't happen. And if you watch that game, and I have twice, it's actually very similar, Spencer Rattler's performance, to his previous outings. Decent, not bad, mostly efficient. But this time there were two glaring exceptions, which is why you played pretty similar to your previous 4 losses, except for 2 things. One was within his control, one was outside of his control that he obviously was able to benefit from. The biggest difference, you know where I'm going with this. Rattler finally popped on an explosive play. He finally went big. He finally connected. They matched it up. They got the matchup. They got the personnel grouping. He connects with Rashid Shaheed on an 87-yard touchdown. The play call, the protection, the pass, the route, an absolute work of art at a time where they absolutely had to have it. They were down 14-6, I believe, at that point. So they needed a big play to really get the juices flowing inside that Superdome, because before that they had just gotten their first stop or second stop, I believe, on the Giants, and it just felt like the Giants had really had their way, and their only problem was a couple of misses that they had on their behalf. But it was an absolute work of art. So all things being equal, which a lot of it was, that was different. The one thing that was different from him in this performance that, hey, made an obvious difference. And it wasn't just big because, frankly, it wasn't just a touchdown. It was their only offensive touchdown all game long. So they got the explosive play. They scored the touchdown. Little did we know at the time that was going to be the only time the offense was going to score a touchdown all game long. The other factor, obviously, it didn't have anything to do with it, but he benefited from it, and that's why football is a team game. And that obviously, in my opinion, was the biggest factor in this game. No QB should ever apologize for his defense giving him 5 turnovers to work with. One of those, he didn't have to touch the ball because the defense scored for him.
Yep.
Very hard to lose a game in the NFL when you are +5 in the turnover ratio. And credit Rattler, he didn't lose it. For the first time, he won because of that. The one explosive play, mostly managing the game, and the 5 takeaways the defense got. This is not the first time, though. I was thinking about this today. This is not the first time you kind of felt like Rattler may be on his last shot. I think back to the preseason. Remember, after the first preseason game, he was a little so-so against the Chargers. Tyler Shuck had the big touchdown, the pick 6. But that week of practice, it felt like it really swung in Tyler Shuck's favor. Tyler Shuck had got the start against the Jacksonville Jaguars. It was preseason game number 2. And we were both saying, and it really felt like if Shuck had a good game with the starters, he may be in the lead for QB1 and ultimately get that job. Well, we know what happens. Shuck goes in, has kind of a whatever performance, wasn't that great. But Spencer Rattler comes in, and Rattler does what he does. Rallies, does just enough to beat Jacksonville, rally to one of the most dramatic preseason ties you'll ever see. The Dome was rocking the last few minutes of that game. And look, momentum had swung right back to him, and he's held on to the job ever since. And despite some ups and downs and ups and downs and ups and downs, when his back was against the wall, he got the win he needed. So, as for what does this mean for Rattler going forward? Well, I think it's pretty clear. He bought himself at least another week, maybe more. He at least gets New England. Now, if he bombs New England, maybe you revisit the conversation. But if it's a Rattler performance and it's like it was last week, I doubt you get 5 turnovers. If you do, great, but I doubt you get 5 takeaways again. We'll see how the results play out if they don't get that boost this week. But I think he bought himself at least a week, maybe more. As for the offense as a whole, though, I'll just, add a little dose of reality here, guys. The formula worked this week because of the takeaways. But make no mistake about it, this was not nearly the great game we may, getting caught up in the emotion of the first win of the season, would have actually thought. When you peel back the layers, and you don't have to peel back a whole lot, just it's pretty clear. 0 for 3 in the red zone is bad, despite 4 extra possessions. Only scoring 19 offensive points is a little disappointing when you consider the ultimate amount of chances that they had. But today is a day of celebration. It's Victory Monday in the city. The Saints organization, congratulations. To Kellen Moore, congratulations. To Spencer Rattler, I say congrats. In fact, I told him, you and I both told him as much when we talked to him after the game. And to the Rat Pack, I say congratulations.
They've been waiting a long time
Today is your day. I hope you celebrate it. I hope you enjoy it. But let's not make it just one. Let's make it more than just one Victory Monday for old Spencer Rattler. Andre, what you got?
I remember we said it for a long time. Spencer Rattler, we want him to win his first game. We wanted it a lot for him. Stand up on the table, and unfortunately that table's not very secure. We won't be standing on that table. We did give him a clap at the beginning of the episode. Now, the only thing I will say, Victory Monday does not need to be overreaction Monday. Okay. There's a lot of people saying, that's our guy. He looked like a franchise quarterback in that game. We're going to roll with Rattler for the rest of the season. Slow your roll. We don't have to go there, and we can still credit Spencer Rattler. And I give Spencer Rattler credit for this. Number one, he won the game.
That's it.
We've sat here and we talked about every single game that he's lost. We've broken down what he could have done in those games, the moments that he had, the moments he didn't come up with. We talked about how he wasn't playing losing football, but he hadn't done enough to play winning football. None of that talk today. He won the game.
Yep.
Congratulations. He gets props for that. He gets credit for that. He played pretty well. Ironically, I don't think that was even his best game of the season.
It might not have been.
I don't think it was. I think it was better against San Fran,
Yeah.
week 2.
Yeah.
He
You
just
might be
couldn't
right.
close the deal at the end against San Fran, but I don't think that was his best game. I think for the most part, he gave us the typical Spencer Rattler experience. You know, he had a lot of short passes, dump offs to the running back, short intermediate routes, 6 to 8 yards, Olave, Shaheed, a couple to Vele, Brandon Cooks, the typical Spencer Rattler, except for, and this is the other thing I'll give him credit for, and this is something I've criticized him for, he hit the deep ball. Rashid Shaheed, and that's what we talked about at the beginning of the season. When you're able to run the ball, go over the top on that play action, you hit Rashid Shaheed for an explosive play. That's what we saw Derek Carr do all last season at the start of the year. Spencer Rattler did it. He walked it to Rashid Shaheed. It was a great throw, a great play that really got the dome rocking. And after that, it felt like the momentum swung in the Saints' favor, and they never gave it back. So I'm giving a lot of credit to Spencer Rattler today. I just don't want this to turn into an overreaction Monday, because in reality, if you want to talk about Saints versus Giants, what was the story of the game? This game was about the defense. This game was about 5 takeaways. And if we want to talk about the defense, we can rave for the next 16 minutes of this episode, but the topic is, what does it mean for Spencer Rattler? For Spencer Rattler, it means he's bought himself some time.
No doubt.
That's the reality of it. He has 1 win. The Saints still sit at 1-4. He is going to play New England next week. For this week, there will be no mentions of Tyler Shuck, like there would have been if he lost that game and dropped to 0-5. If he dropped to 0-5, the title of this podcast would be,
Is it time?
Should Tyler Shuck start against the Patriots? We will not be talking about that this week. We know Rattler will start against the Patriots, and honestly, I think he's earned the right to start in Soldier Field.
Unless he bombs,
unless he completely stinks it up against New England.
Right.
I think he earned the right to start the next 2 games at least. Patriots, Bears. Now, if he struggles with them, I think we're back to that conversation of the Saints now sit at, if he struggles and they lose, 1-6. Spencer Rattler 1-12 as a starter. The talk starts all over again. But Rat Pack, listen to this. Y'all guy has an opportunity. Spencer Rattler has an opportunity because just like he bought some time with that win, let's say he goes the next 2 games, New England, Chicago, 2 second-year quarterbacks. In his draft class, by the way.
Oh, he knows one of them real well.
All right, Caleb Williams. He's got a little bit of history with Caleb Williams. Both have been kind of up and down in their careers. Both are still learning, just like Spencer Rattler is. If you play well in these next 2 games, these next 2 games are very winnable games. I know we just saw New England beat the Buffalo Bills last night. We also saw New England lose to the Las Vegas Raiders. New England is not unbeatable by any stretch. Chicago is not unbeatable by any stretch. These are 2 winnable games for the Saints. One of them's at home. If Spencer Rattler wins these next 2 games, the Saints sit at 3-4, you might not hear Tyler Shuck's name for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Then at that point, the narrative really starts to swing on Spencer Rattler. So I say it was a good win. It opens the door for a big opportunity for Spencer Rattler to continue to shut down the talk about him losing the job, him not being the guy. He can prove a lot of the Rat Pack right. I just say let's not overreact, because at the end of the day, I think he was still the same Spencer Rattler for the most part that we saw earlier this season, minus that deep ball. I don't think it was his best game. I think his best game was week 2 against the Niners. But at the end of the day, you play to win the game.
That's it.
Spencer Rattler won the game. Saints played a great one. It was a bad team in the Giants, but you can't control who's on your schedule. You play who's on the schedule. They played a good game against a bad team. Doesn't matter that one goes in the win column either way. Congratulations, Rattler. Congratulations, Saints. But like I said, Victory Monday does not have to be overreaction Monday. Let's just keep that in mind.
Yeah, a couple things, that within the Rattler discussion, but also big picture. I thought this was really the first game on their schedule where you look at their first 4 games, all those teams are better than the Saints.
Yeah.
The Giants
San Fran when they played San Fran.
But they keep winning. San Fran does. So it's like they had a ton of injuries the other night, and they still played well. But I thought New York was, and this was even before the season. New York was the first team on the schedule where you felt like, okay, they're on the same level talent-wise. That's a very undisciplined group. I went back and watched it. They moved the ball on the Saints a lot. I mean, some of the fumbles, and they had trouble with the ball. Not just the 3 fumbles that they had, but they had 2 or 3 other ones where it was very close to being fumbles. The knee just hit the ground or fumbled it out of bounds. So it was a good matchup for the Saints, a good get-right game. Hopefully you're able to keep right. You look ahead to the New England Patriots, which we'll get more into the matchup. That is they're a hot team right now, but they just went to a very difficult place to play. We were there the week before and won that game. That's a high emotionally. To now have to come down to New Orleans, noon kickoff, you might be catching them at the right time. But I do think your honest take on the offensive production, I still was left wanting a little bit more because, look, they got the big play, and I think that was one of the differences in the game, that plus the 5 takeaways. And you can't just wipe that off the page. But if you put that aside, I still felt like there's more there, and they bogged down in the red zone. They're not doing well in the red zone. They 6 field goal attempts with making 4 of them. So I just felt overall offensively, it was enough to win the game, obviously, but they can't go into this week thinking, all right, we got our problem solved, because I think it's still a lot of the very same things that were holding them back the first 4 weeks.
Especially, I mean, the thing that we thought this offense would revolve around, running the ball.
It's not happening.
I mean, even in a game where Taysom came back, you had Kamara, Kendre Miller's really starting to play well. You ran the ball 30 times for 88 yards. That's less than 3 yards a carry.
Yeah.
That is not a winning formula. Having to kick 6 field goals, like you said, you make 4 of them. Putting together 12-play drives for 50 yards and ending in 3 points, maybe if Blake Grupe makes the field goal. That's not going to beat a lot of teams. Fortunately, Sunday, we got caught up with the team that it would beat in the New York Giants.
That's why who you play matters.
Exactly. But, so it was a good start for sure. Hopefully they continue to build on that, because you're going to need to build on that if you want to beat teams like the Patriots.
Yeah.
If you're going to beat offenses that can be explosive like the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, it's interesting because we alluded earlier, look, 5 takeaways in a game. I'm not even sure the Greg Williams year in 2009 got 5 in a game. It's hard to do. 5 straight turnovers in a game was the first time since 2016 it happened in the NFL, first time since 1991 for the Saints. I mean, that's not easy to do. And every one of those scores, every one of those takeaways happened in Saints territory with the exception of the last one. So I just felt like usually when the team loses the turnover by that much, they get crushed, they get dominated, and it wasn't necessarily the case. But look, you gotta crawl before you walk. You gotta get that first win. So they got that first win, and hopefully this is a sign of things to come going forward. Which leads me to this question. We have quite a bit of questions after this game.
By the way, questions. If you have questions, we have the Final Play app that you can get on whatever phone app store you have. Download the Final Play app. Go to the side menu, submit a question. There's a show we do on Fox 8 with Deuce McAllister, Saints legend, called the Black and Gold Review. Your question may get answered on there every Monday night, or might get answered right here on the Fox 8 Overtime podcast like me and Sean are about to do.
I'm about to do this right now from Paul Lee in New Orleans. Do you guys think this is the beginning of a turnaround for the Saints, mainly the defense, or was it just the team they played? Should fans get excited of what could come? All right, so we talked about this when we went over when we entered October. Is October a month for optimism? And I said it would not be a stretch to have the Saints win 2 games in this month.
Right.
You could talk yourself into them winning 3 or 4, honestly, because NFC South is always tough. And I go back to, okay, you're better than, or you're at least on equal footing with the Giants, maybe even a little bit better. I would say New England is probably a little bit better than you, just on the surface, but they're not so much better that they can't be beaten if you play well. Don't think you can bank on 5 turnovers, but you can bank on some turnovers and maybe doing some things better in other areas like the red zone. The Bears, to me, are a team that feels like they're on equal footing with the Saints. Now, it's a road game. We'll see. They got an erratic quarterback, too. So I think that's a winnable game. I don't know if they're going to win. I don't know if I'm going to predict the win, but I think that's a winnable game. Tampa's tough. I think Baker's probably playing as good a football as he's ever played in his entire career, but they've been dealing with injuries. And remember the last time they came here last year was Rattler's first start. They played him well in that first half or that second quarter, and then the second half they obviously took over. But I think, can this be a start of a turnaround? I think this could be the start of some moderate success. I think they can be 2-6 at the 8-game mark. I think when you look into November, they can get a game or two because you got Carolina twice, you got Miami, you got Tennessee, you got the Jets. That's 6 games right there, or 5 games right there. You could potentially get a couple wins. And all of a sudden, maybe my 6-11 prediction wouldn't look so bad. So I guess we'll see. But I think they could be 2-6 at the 8-game mark. What about you?
That's what, most of the people who made record predictions for the Saints predicted them to be, 4-13, 5-12, 6-11. And all of those people probably predicted them to beat the Giants. So, what is considered a turnaround? If we say, is it a turnaround? Are we trying to, potentially get into that wild card conversation? Is it a turnaround of playing, competent football? That's kind of how I'm looking at it, is more of a turnaround on the field compared to the record, because I don't think the Saints are going to be better than a lot of teams that they play. They were better than the Giants on Sunday. But when you look at it offensively, we just talked about, some things we want to see from the offense. Red zone, running the ball. There's still more that Spencer Rattler can do, yada, yada, yada. But defensively, I think that could have been the start of a turnaround. Jonas Sanker.
Yeah, I mean, those young
still
safeties.
Looking great.
Yeah.
And he was the best player on the field last week in Buffalo. Kool-Aid McKinstry, somebody who both of us on this podcast said, man, we're waiting for you to take that year 2 jump. We need to see something. We saw it Sunday.
Yeah.
2 interceptions. And he had a swat in the end zone as well that broke up a touchdown. Finally, some signs of life from Kool-Aid McKinstry. Brian Brzee, he's not getting the sacks, but if you watch the games,
he's playing well.
If you want to see someone who's consistently around the quarterback, it's Brian Brzee. He had a swat on Jackson Dart.
Blocked field goal. He had a swat. He punched the ball out on, to me, the back-breaking fumble, which was the Scadaboo fumble that was the scoop and score. He's making these individual like impressive plays. He's not necessarily getting sacks, but he's playing better than perhaps the stats show.
Exactly. So you've got all 3 young players: Brian Brzee, Jonas Sanker, Kool-Aid McKinstry. I'll give you another one that nobody talks about, but when you look at the stat sheet every week, he's there. When I watched the game the second time around from low angle, you see him. Chris Rumph, the second.
Yeah.
Chris Rumph Jr., another young player that is consistently around the football. Most people don't talk about Chris Rumph, but when you're watching the games, you're like, oh, there's Chris Rumph with his 4th tackle of the game.
Right.
As a linebacker / D lineman, okay, I see you. Even Jordan Howden, got in on the action yesterday. So I think it could be a bit of a turning point for the defense, who gave Josh Allen a fight last week. They made Jackson Dart look like a rookie, something that even the Los Angeles Chargers, who were undefeated, couldn't do. So I think it could be a bit of a turning point for the defense starting on Sunday. And they've got 2 quarterbacks that are beatable in Drake May and Caleb Williams coming up. I think the month of October for the defense could be, very interesting.
Well, see, to me, it all depends on the secondary. We'll see what happens with the pass rush. We'll see what happens with Chase Young. If the secondary can then come together, it's going to be very young. And we'll see what happens with Justin Reed, how long he's out. I know he's in a concussion protocol. And how many opposing wide receiver ones are you facing? I thought as the game went on, especially when Saints took the lead, and they really had to throw the ball more, the Giants I'm talking about, the absence of Malik Neighbors really stood out. I know next week they got Stephon Diggs, who I think you could still call him a 1 in the NFL, close, high 2, low 1. Who else? They got the Bears coming up. They got and then obviously they got Tampa Bay.
Bears got Romo Dunze and DJ Moore out there.
And then we know Tampa always seems to have a lot of receivers, even when they're.
You might have to take on Mike Evans without Marshawn Lattimore, and I don't know what that even looks like anymore.
All right, I got one more question here from Marcus White in Gentilly. This is something we probably got to get to.
Yeah.
This would have been a much bigger story had the Saints lost.
Yeah.
How long before Grupe is a goner, or at least the kicking situation is seriously addressed? We cannot afford to be in win by field goal positions with this inconsistency. I agree. And fortunately, they haven't had to depend on him to kick a game winner, because they just haven't had the ball last with that opportunity where a field goal would win it or tie it. You can't count on him right now. He had 6 opportunities yesterday, went 4 for 6. He's obviously missed quite a bit throughout the season. He's had a horrible start to the season. This coaching staff, it appears, is going to be patient with him. I'm surprised by now that patience hasn't worn thin. It would be if I were the coach. And I've seen coaches cut kickers too fast because they just feel like they can just recycle those guys. So I understand why you want to let your guys work through a slump. But you look around with the kicking in the NFL, I mean, there's guys, the second they cross the midfield, you feel like you're in field goal range. Yeah. So he doesn't have that kind of range to begin with, so he's got to be deadly accurate, and he's not accurate. There's a couple other things, too. They mishandled the first 2 kickoffs that they received. Velus Jones had a weird return to start the game, like 11 yards. Then he caught one over his shoulder. I guess he caught it at like the 1 yard line and it took him into the end zone. Yeah. So instead of getting the ball at the 35, they got it at the 20. So that operation has got to get cleaner. I didn't think Kroger had the best game. But I will say this about Grupe. He made a play you probably aren't going to remember, but he saved a touchdown. He had a touchdown-saving tackle on a kickoff, and that was right when the Saints had gotten momentum back. Then Giants could have stole it right back with a big kickoff return because that guy was out in the open field, and you see Grupe running across. He's like, I got this, I got it. And, dude, he got it, and the whole sideline erupted. So that might have been the biggest play of the season so far for Blake Grupe.
I know they're talking about that giant in the locker room. How you get tackled?
I know, 145-pound kicker.
All these giants on the field, and you got soloed by Blake Grupe?
Yeah.
That's interesting. But, you know, will the Saints address the kicker situation? I'm surprised they haven't already. Yeah. I mean, you've played 5 games. Blake Grupe has missed a kick in 4 of those games. You've got kickers, like you said, that have ranged from 60. You look at the game winner yesterday.
65.
From 52. It was at the top of the net.
Yeah.
It would have been good from 60 plus, maybe even 70. Like, Blake Grupe's whole thing is, okay, he doesn't have the 60-yard range, but he has the accuracy. But he hasn't been accurate. There are a lot of kickers out there, and I'm surprised the Saints are so loyal and sticking with Grupe. But, man, you have one job. Make your kicks. You can't keep missing your kicks and stay wearing black and gold. Blake Grupe, you have an opportunity to turn it around. You better take it quick because I don't know how many more misses he's got in him.
Well, I'm with you. I thought it would have been done, but it hadn't been done. Speaking of done, we're done. Yep. Andre Johnson Jr., I'm Sean Fazende. Saints get a win. Oh, yeah. Victory Monday. We'll catch you guys next time on Overtime.